Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And Disney must pay.
Well, there's a hashtag saying that.
Disney must pay. Hashtag Disney is withholding royalty payments from Alan Dean Foster, a Star Wars and Alien book author. We're going to talk about that, talk about the whole situation with Star Wars books and the expanded universe, and how Disney does try to skirt around some of its obligations. This is nothing new.
No.
So before we get into it, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants and daily dismal Disney news.
Well, it's not our fault that they just keep providing it.
Disney is dismal, and they keep creating the dismal news. We're just reporting on it. So this happened last night. This came out that Alan Dean Foster is chasing Mickey Mouse for royalties.
Right. Now, Alan Dean Foster was the one who did the novelization of the first Star Wars movie. He did Splinter of the Mind's Eye. Kind of was the one who originated the whole novelization or novel of Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know, IP stuff.
Yeah, and it wasn't really, as I recall, because I did read it years and years and years ago.
I read it a long time ago, too.
It was not canon. It wasn't considered canon because there was a lot of stuff that got walked back with Empire Strikes Back, but...
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah. But for the time, that and the early Marvel comics were kind of the beginnings of Star Wars outside of the movies.
Right.
And the holiday special, but we won't talk about that either.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he definitely has left his mark on Star Wars. He's done a lot of other books since then, and he's done Alien books, which is now 20th Century Fox or whatever the hell they're calling it. Or
20th Century
Film Studios or something,
like
whatever they changed it to. So Disney owns all of these books that Alan Dean Foster did, and they're not paying him royalties.
No. And that's a problem because he had a deal, and their argument is that when they bought the IP, that they didn't buy his obligations. And I'm like, wait a minute. If that's the case, then anybody ever could just say, well, I'm buying this IP, but I don't want to pay anybody any of the money, but I want to keep making money off of it. I don't think... because this is a contract written years ago. They didn't have a chance to have their lawyers put all the loopholes in it that they always do, because we've seen their contracts. We'll talk about that in a bit. But... the person that's in charge of it was the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America person that's trying to negotiate the situation. She said on Twitter and stuff, she's like, what is to stop companies from selling IPs to their sister companies so they still keep it, just to break contracts and keep all the money? It sets a dangerous precedent.
So I have to wonder, this is, again, I think
you're right.
I can't verify this. This is my tinfoil mouse ears going off. But Lucasfilm, when they rebooted the expanded universe, they basically tossed all of these novels in the garbage.
Right.
In their mind, did Disney toss all of these contracts in the garbage to pay all of these authors royalties?
Right. That might be what's going on. But now they're picking and choosing characters. I have to look at the picture and laugh because I read every single one of those. I've read all of those books.
Actually, before we get into it, Geeky's real name is Cambria. Cambria is actually a character in the expanded universe.
Yep.
You are part of the Diversity Alliance.
I am.
The Diversity Alliance is an anti-human, anti-Jedi terrorist group.
That's right.
The Diversity Alliance.
But anyway, it's funny because it's like, and yes, it is named after me. Before people are like, oh, what a coincidence. It's not a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence. I confirmed it. I confirmed it.
Yeah, I used to read all the books. Those are new. A lot of people who have been with us know this story. Those are new. I used to read all the Star Wars books. Huge Star Wars fan since I was a kid. Used to sell toys for myself at college. I loved Star Wars. I would write the authors fan letters. If I liked something, I would write them a letter and tell them I liked it because, as somebody now who's written stuff myself, it's nice to hear from people that, they like it. And this is back before we had social media, so you couldn't just connect with them. And, I didn't even know they get to see it. I just sent it to their publisher, and they got it to them. And I would get letters back from them thanking me for liking their work. And one of them came from Kevin Anderson, and he said he liked my name quite a bit and that he was going to put it on he puts names on a list. And I didn't think anything of it until I actually stopped reading the books when I was in college, and I started substitute teaching because I got really busy and I just didn't have time to read anymore. So I had stopped reading The Young Jedi Knights, and not long after I stopped reading it, apparently I got put in the books. Yes. But I had no idea, and I didn't know till 10 years later when Kneon found it by accident.
Yeah, you actually, there was an entry on Wikipedia for Cambria.
You're searching my name for something else.
Yeah, I'm like, because her name's not, very common. I asked Kevin J. Anderson if it was her, and he's like, yeah, it was.
He says she has a letter, it's her, and I do.
Yeah, it's whoever, if she's the one that wrote me the letter, then that is absolutely her. And I talked to him on Facebook or something, and I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, so my wife's in a Star Wars.
Yes, he was very excited. I was very excited. I think I just became the coolest wife ever, according to Kneon.
Yeah.
I wasn't already, because he was like, holy shit, they named a Star Wars character after my wife. When I say I was a huge Star Wars nut, and I like classic, I like the books and stuff, I'm not kidding. I read everything. I wrote letters. I mean, I was the ultimate female Star Wars nerd. I mean, it's the truth. But anyway, back to the point. So we got all these books that are now thrown out the window, including my character, when they bought Star Wars. And your theory is, and I agree with you, is because, well, we sure as hell wouldn't want to have to use all these books and characters and pay royalties. People are like, why didn't we get The Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and Last Command as the sequel trilogy? Because people would have loved that because they're really good and they have Mara Jade. And, you said, yeah, because then they had to pay Timothy Zahn.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, I don't know for sure if this is the case, but it was awfully odd for Disney to throw everything out and say, hey, we're starting with a clean slate, and then still cherry pick characters from those books.
None of it counts. It all isn't canon anymore. But we're going to pick the most popular characters. You know damn well they're going to bring Mara Jade in. And you know damn well they're going to ruin her.
Yeah, but they brought Thrawn in, but I have to wonder, that's a new deal with Timothy Zahn.
Yeah.
Because it's like a different version of Thrawn that they introduced in Clone Wars. So I don't know the specifics of the deal. I don't know if it, comes down to an author by author basis, but it does seem like, knowing how Disney is, that they would use a loophole like that to get.
Oh, I agree.
People.
Before we get into that, they're going to sell Thrawn wooden figures at Galaxy's Edge now.
Oh, yeah.
I was very excited about that. Anyway, yes, I totally think they would do that. And that's what's going on here. They're like, basically, when we bought Star Wars, we didn't buy the obligations that came with it. So this organization is out there trying to make some kind of agreement with Disney, like some kind of accord to get them to talk about it. Disney refuses to respond to the author, his lawyer, his agent, any of that. They refuse to respond to it. They don't normally make it public who the people who are involved in these disputes are, but they did because it was Disney, and they are absolutely refusing. They won't talk to him unless he signs an NDA, which I don't blame him for not signing the NDA, because a lot of times they hide a lot of shit in those things, and they're just trying to use it to bully you and be like, well, we're going to screw you over and you can't talk about it. They're basically using it to try to silence him from talking about it.
Yeah, so this is the grievance committee, and this happens a lot in publishing. It's skeevy, it really is. But look, the companies, especially companies like Disney, that have the most expensive lawyers, they're going to do what they can do to save money, especially now when they're being pinched.
But this is going on for a while now.
Oh,
so there's no reason, when they had record-breaking sales before February, why they couldn't have made sure he got his royalties paid out.
Well, let's read what the grievance committee said. They said, last year a member came to the grievance committee with a problem, which on the surface sounds simple and resolvable. He had written novels and was not being paid the royalties that were specified in his contract. The grievance committee is designed to resolve contract disputes like this. As part of our negotiating toolbox, we guarantee anonymity for both the writer and the publisher if the grievance is resolved. When it's working, as president, I never hear from them. When talks break down, the president of SFWA is asked to step in. We do this for any member. In this case, the member is Alan Dean Foster. The publisher is Disney.
I mean, they're going public, and they had a press conference with him because it's ridiculous. And here's what, you can read it. Here's what Alan Dean Foster had said in his letter.
Here are his words. Dear Mickey, we have a lot in common, you and I. We share a birthday, November 18th.
Well, happy birthday, Alan.
Oh, wow. What a hell of a way to celebrate your birthday. My dad's nickname was Mickey, and there's more. When you purchased Lucasfilm, you acquired the rights to some books I wrote. Star Wars, a novelization of the first film. Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the first sequel novel. You owe me royalties on these books, and you stopped paying them. When you purchased 20th Century Fox, you eventually acquired the rights to other books I had written, the novelizations of Alien, Aliens, and Alien 3. You've never paid royalties on any of these or even issued royalty statements for them. All these books are still very much in print. They still earn money for you. When one company buys another, they acquire its liabilities as well as its assets.
And they did acquire the liabilities of 20th Century because they were out there trying to unload things and consolidate and things because of the liabilities. And at the last shareholder meeting, they basically said, we're not going to discuss, what money's lost and what we're making. I mean, you had $70 billion to pay for the damn, for Fox, but you don't have the money to pay the guy for his work?
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah, well, that's just it. They don't want to. You're certainly reaping the benefits of the assets I'd like very much my minuscule, though it's not small to me, share. You want me to sign an NDA before...
Don't sign it.
Yeah, we'll talk about Disney NDAs. We have signed many of those. Before talking, I've signed a lot of NDAs in my 50-year career. Never once did anyone ever ask me to sign one prior to negotiations.
Yep. Disney does.
Disney does. For the obvious reason that once you sign, you can no longer talk about the matter at hand. Every one of my representatives in this matter with many, many, many decades of experience in such business echo my bewilderment.
Yeah, I agree. Don't sign it.
And we can talk about Disney and this is what they do. This is how they work, guys. This is Disney. This is how they work. You continue to ignore requests from my agents. You continue to ignore queries from the science fiction and fantasy writers of America. You continue to ignore my legal representatives. I know this is what gargantuan corporations often do. Ignore requests and inquiries, hoping the petitioner will simply go away or possibly die.
Disney is notorious for trying to drag you out of court as long as possible. Even if you are in the right, they will try to make sure it gets drug out till you run out of money.
Yeah. Yep. I'm still here. I'm still entitled to what you owe me, including not to be ignored just because I'm only one lone writer. I have to wonder, though, if there aren't more.
Well, that's what he said.
Yeah. How many other writers and artists out there are you ignoring?
And bad press to Disney is like kryptonite. And we saw this with the one woman who had the concern about Onward, where the van was based on a van that she had. And it looked, and now it wasn't exact. They did make changes to it, but it was clearly, they even rented her van for an event at the studio. And they never told her they were using it for that. So she had a concern. It was all over the media. Now, that one was all over the media. It was interesting, and this one wasn't. That was all over the media, and then suddenly it went silent. You never heard anything else about it. You don't hear anything else from her, because I guarantee they settled with her and gave her money. Like we had the Skyliner incident, where all these people were trapped in the Skyliner for hours, and there were people that had health conditions and there were issues, and people were in cars that smacked into each other and stuff. Where did that go? Where did that go, guys? I mean, I'm sure that people were paid money to not speak of it anymore. So Disney, they're completely right in going public with it, because this is the quickest way to get it resolved. Continue.
This is where it gets really tragic.
And it's sad.
My wife has serious medical issues, and in 2016, I was diagnosed with an advanced form of cancer. We really could use the money, not charity, just what I'm owed. I've always loved Disney. The films, the parks, growing up with Disneyland TV shows. I don't think Uncle Walt would approve of how you're currently treating me.
I don't think Uncle Walt would approve a lot of things.
Uncle Walt is not in this company at all anymore. Maybe someone in the right position just hasn't received the word. No, they know. They know. Though after all these months of ignored requests and queries, it's hard to countenance. Or, as a guy named Bob Iger said, the way you do anything is the way you do everything.
Oh, that was good.
I'm not feeling it. Love Alan Dean Foster. Right now, Disney doesn't have the mug.
That's me.
That's you.
I said they don't have the money for it, and then she goes on to speak about it. And she said that this is the problem she's worried about. The larger problem has the potential to affect every writer. Disney's argument is that they've purchased the rights, but not the obligations of the contract. In other words, they believe they have the rights to publish work, but are not obligated to pay the writer, no matter what the contract says. If we let this stand, it could set precedent to fundamentally alter the way copyright and contracts operate in the United States. And we already know how Disney manipulates copyright.
All the time. This little guy right here.
Right. All a publisher would have to do is break a contract to be able to sell it to a sibling company, which is what I was talking about. And we already know that copyright, there's all kinds of copyright changes to law that have been extended and changed repeatedly because Disney throws money at it and makes sure it gets changed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a dangerous precedent. And then it's like, why do you work for these companies? Yeah, you might get out there, but you're never going to, get what you're owed. Go make sure of it.
Yeah, Disney, if they had it their way, Disney would just pay you a pittance, work for hire, and that'd be it. Because in their mind, the way that it works for the rest of the company, in a lot of cases, is you basically are paid your salary or paid your one-time fee. they own everything and you're just out the damn door.
And that's how a lot of the stuff is done now.
Yeah.
But a lot of things like his books and the books that were in the old deals were done differently.
Yeah.
There was royalties, they were set up as contracts. And you're right, when you buy a company, I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I mean, there might be more loopholes to it than, and things to it that I'm aware of. But it just seems that if you buy a company and if you owe their bills, then why would you not owe the deals for the people that you're buying?
Yeah.
That should come with it. I mean, and if you weren't being taken with it, then you should have been notified.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's just it. But I mean, we even saw how they dealt with, like you were saying, with Fox. It's like, oh, we're not even going to report Fox bookkeeping separately anymore. We're just going to roll it into Disney.
Well, no, we're just not going to tell you. It's like, we're not reporting on these numbers anymore. They flat out said that. We're not reporting on it anymore because everybody knows they overspent on Fox, and the investors are like, what, how much you still owe on that shithole? And we're not talking about it anymore going forward. We're not even mentioning it now. And it's like, well, that tells me everything I need to know. But yeah, so this is not okay. And she said that to resolve the matter, they have given Disney 3 choices. They can pay him all his back royalties as well as any future royalties and just be done with it. Publication ceases until new contracts are signed and pay all back royalties to him, as well as future royalties. Or they can cease and pay back all royalties. The publication can cease and they can pay him back. Because like he said, he know he's sick, and then they wait until he dies so they can say they don't owe him now or something.
Well, they still owe his estate, though.
Right. It's a load of crap. But he did a press conference. I didn't get to watch it. I kind of didn't find about this till late, and I've been working since early. But this is a problem, and we've run into it before with Disney. We most definitely had to sign things before they would look at things.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna roll back. I've signed many NDAs, and I signed a lot of NDAs with Disney. Working, in comics. Mm-hmm. We had a joint venture. We're gonna talk about that. But working in comics, even, which is why I'm so baffled by how Marvel Comics creators are acting online, because the agreement I had to sign when I worked on Disney Comics, going back to like 2003, 2004. Was they even had a policy like you're not allowed to disparage Disney in public. You're not supposed to, as a Disney representative, you're not supposed to be out there, bad mouthing people, whatever, any of this. They even had like behavioral clauses, but they also said we own everything you do.
It was very clear. We
don't have to give you any royalties on anything. They basically, their opinion is they pay you once, they don't owe you any royalties, they don't owe you anything else. Don Rosa, who I've actually had the pleasure of working on some of his comics, re-inking and recoloring some of those, he basically retired from comics because he did not want to deal with Disney anymore. They wanted to reprint his stuff endlessly, not give him royalties. This is why he trademarked his name. Mm-hmm. So if you want to do a Don Rosa collection, you basically have to pay Don Rosa something. And also they wanted his original artwork. They wanted to be able to keep his original artwork because to them, you're just a chimp that they pay making content for Disney, and they own everything.
And from my understanding, he was in a contract with them long enough ago that they didn't have that right in those contracts.
Yeah, he was working on Disney Comics back in the 80s, and he was working through different publishers, most of them overseas. But he was just like, I'm not dealing with them because they're not fair. And we had this happen with us later. We actually pitched some animated series to Disney, and before they even look at your pitches, mm-hmm. Now this is pretty standard, I guess, across the board. You have to sign paperwork, but the problem with the Disney contract is that you basically waive any right to sue them if they happen to come up with a similar idea. If they
happen, in quotes, to come up with something very similar to your idea, you can't say anything because it's all accidental and you're agreeing to that. Now, we had that happen. It could be coincidence. I'm not going to say that it was 100% for sure they did it. I'm going to say, we'll say coincidence, But we had a thing we pitched. And they passed on it, and then they had a project they already had greenlit, and it was listed as one title and one description. After our pitch went through, and that coming close to when the show was going to release a while later, they put the name up. And they put the new description, and the name sounds very, very similar to what ours was, and it's not the name they had bought it under. And the description has a lot of things that were like, wait a minute, that sounds very much like ours, but it was not what they had originally said that the story was about when they put it in like Variety or whatever. Yeah.
So basically, what happened was, in my opinion, was that we talked about this. They probably had this other show picked up.
They already did.
They like some elements of a pitch that they may have seen. They rolled some of those elements into this other show, but that show was live action, which was cheaper than the version we pitched, which was animated.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, is it possible that wasn't what happened? Yeah.
Yeah,
do
it's
I
totally
think that?
possible.
Do I think it's what happened? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I do, because there's too many things that could be coincidence. But we signed the paper. You can't go after them for if there's anything that kind of remotely resembles yours. And then it was really interesting. We talked to another place about it because we were released from that, so we were allowed to do what we wanted. And we talked to another place about it, and they were all interested. And then we found out later the reason that it seemed that they're interested is because they're really good friends with the person that was doing that show. And then we come along with something that sounds just like it. And they kept asking like questions. Well, when did you do this? What was the timeline on this? And we're like, and I think it's because they wanted to see why they had their friend change their show. And then, well, you do know there's a lot of ideas that a lot of people have the same ideas, right? And it was like, why are you saying that to us for a pitch?
Yeah, that was kind of a weird thing. And, again, we wouldn't have had any knowledge of what the specifics were of this other show because it hadn't even been really fleshed out or announced.
All you knew was they bought the show. It had one name, and here's a synopsis. And then it shows up months later after ours with a different name that sounds very similar to ours and a synopsis that changes to have elements that we had in ours that were not in their synopsis before.
And we saw this happen with Zootopia, too. There actually was a legit screenwriter who went to Disney with a series called Zootopia that was fairly similar to what they finally went with, but there were elements that they cherry picked, like, oh, we like the name Zootopia and we like the concept of it being a bunch of animals, but we're going to change things. Tried to sue, was not successful. Now that's the thing. Disney's contracts now, their NDAs, basically are one-sided. You sign papers with Disney, you're signing away any rights to any recourse.
Even your idea that hasn't been done yet, and it's ridiculously stupid. We saw Lion King. There's a lot of similarities between Kimba.
Well, Disney was in talks with them. They wouldn't play ball, so they just made their own. And a lot of it, I think, comes down to royalties. I think they don't want to pay royalties if they don't have to. If they're buying a show or a book or a movie, that's been supposedly internally developed, they really don't owe those people royalties anymore. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they bring in an outsider, they got to pay
royalties. Or if they buy something that has a royalties agreement, you don't just say, well, we bought it now, so that's out the window. I mean, there would have had to have been some legal closure to it or something. Like I said, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the ins and outs of this as much as somebody who is, and I'm sure the lawyers are going to cover it on YouTube. I just think it's a lot of crap, and this poor dude is sick, and they're not paying it. And when they can't claim it's because of COVID, because this whole thing started before COVID. We had that with our stupid trademark suit with somebody else that's not Disney, but somehow related. They're claiming after they started this stuff, costed all kinds of money, and started before COVID happened. Now they're trying to claim poverty because of COVID, and that they shouldn't have to pay us back our legal fees after they, wrongfully did something they shouldn't have done, and they have no evidence of ownership whatsoever. Yeah. They're trying to claim COVID and poverty, and I think that's what Disney's going to try to do. Well, because of COVID, this was going on before COVID. That's a load of shit. You did it when you thought you had the money, and you're handing out dividends right and left, but you couldn't give him. And honestly, it's probably a small amount in comparison. You couldn't give him his money, and other people their money, possibly, maybe.
Well, that's the problem, because if they give Alan Dean Foster his money, all these other authors might be like, hey, where's my money? Mm-hmm. What happened here? Like, you're not, because a lot of these books are still being published under Legends.
Well, they are, or they, yeah. I mean, some of them are, some of them aren't. But,
so I mean, every author, that's the thing too, people don't realize every author has a different deal. It depends on what terms were reached via their agent, and the publisher. So it might be that like Timothy Zahn actually has a good deal or has a good situation with Disney.
He was later.
Yeah, he was later. So, the whole thing's complicated.
But the fact that, if he had no leg to stand on, I do not think that there would have been negotiations. I do not think they'd publicly be calling Disney out if they didn't really honestly feel that they had grounds to do so, because that would just make them look bad. The fact that they're doing all these things, leads me to believe that there probably is more, some truth to it, and there is evidence of this, because they wouldn't just be doing that willy-nilly, because they could get in trouble with Disney. Disney will, threaten whatever. So, and And why would they not be answering his lawyer, his agent, anybody if they were completely like, oh, we are in the right here. Here's the legal documents to prove that we were in the right here, and everything else. Why aren't they just handing those over? Why are they just not answering and then saying, well, if you want to talk to us, you have to send an NDA, which probably tells people that you can't talk about us after we screw you over.
Yeah, that's exactly, and that's the NDA that we signed, which was, even, and it's like basically it's forever. The way that was signed was like, you can never, if we agree to look at your pitch, if we greenlight, and they actually did option it, so they gave us money for the option.
They've released us from that.
We've been released from the option, but they had it for like 2 years or something like that. But when they agree to that, it's basically like, if in the future we ever come up with something remotely close to this, any division of Disney, that means even the contract was like ABC and, Lucasfilm and Marvel and all that. If we come up with something similar, you waive the right to sue us. For the pittance of thousands of dollars they give you or whatever.
Well, we're not going to sue them anyway.
No. We knew that going into it.
Yeah, and there's no real way to prove it, even though it is awfully coincidental. I mean, more than just coincidental. Anyway, but they released us, so we have it. It's ours again. We can do whatever we want with it. Some people don't get released, depending, not just Disney, other companies in general. I mean, you might sign some places, and I'll tell you this too. Some places will option books and option stories that they have no intention of using, but they're optioning it because they already are developing something similar, and they're afraid you're going to be competition for them, and they don't want your stuff being picked up by somebody else. They literally will option your stuff to play keep away with other studios as they're working on something. We've seen it happen many times.
Yeah, there are a lot of comic book artists and graphic novelists that get all excited when they get an option. And it's like, no, it doesn't mean anything until it actually moves forward. A lot of times, yeah, like I said, there was one where the protagonist was like a female Indiana Jones, and Disney apparently optioned this graphic novel. And I remember the author being very excited on Twitter about it. And I'm thinking to myself, no, you don't understand. If they're going to do a female Indiana Jones spinoff, they're not going to use your character. They're going to option your book so another studio can't do the same thing. They'll go reboot Indiana Jones with a girl. That's what they're doing. Like, right. We played this game with them too. This is what they do.
I mean, is it right? No. This is what a lot of companies do, yes. But Disney's being called out, and Disney hates bad press. And what was interesting to me is until hours after the fact, only people I saw covering this at all for the longest time was Bounding into Comics and Pirates and Princesses. And then I don't know if I edited it out or not, but I had put in my here I can look. I had put in here about not surprising, normal pop culture and media outlets aren't covering it. I had taken it out. I originally said they want to keep kissing Mickey's butt because they want their media access and cupcakes. But I thought that was probably going too far, so I pulled that part out. I just put instead. But my original text was they just want to kiss the Mickey's butt they want to keep their cupcakes in media. But that now they're starting to cover it. Other places are starting to cover it.
That's how the game's played too. And that's how Disney keeps a lot of the bad press away from themselves, is they buy off media outlets, either directly, like in the case of Vice. They actually own a huge stake in Vice, so Vice isn't going to shit on Disney. They can control that. Other blogs like was it Pop Sugar and all these?
They own those, or parts of those, yeah.
Yeah, so they're not gonna, and then a lot of the pop culture blogs, they would give them free tickets, free stuff.
It was interesting. If nothing proves what we're saying, remember when Disney started losing money, and then COVID happened, and people weren't getting, the movie theaters shut down. There wasn't any incentive. The theaters are shut. The parks were shut. Suddenly, the pop culture media started being like, well, now you mention it, Star Wars wasn't that great after all. Remember, there was a complete flip around the time COVID happened, when the theaters and the parks were shut down. There was nothing in it for them. So then all of a sudden, their opinions flip, because they're like, we're losing money. We're becoming irrelevant, and the fans are pissed at us now, but we did it for Disney and for to beat up Disney's ass. And now that Disney isn't giving us anything, well, now we're in a position where we don't have anything. So now we got to start appealing to the fans and not to the corporations. And then you saw a definitive shift in opinion right after that, when they weren't when the gravy train ran dry.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. Money runs out. And, and Disney at this point, they're not going to pay anything any more than they have to, the bare minimum. Hopefully they settle with him or something. Just give the guy some money. To them, it's a drop in the bucket, even now. But this is Disney we're talking about.
He needs it. And it's not okay. And you're right. It's not even, they help him. They're going to help everyone that they're screwing. And I'm sure we don't know that. But if I were a betting person, If it was happening to him, it's probably happening to others.
Well, we kind of saw this on some level with Rinsler, the guy who wrote the Star Wars, the making of books, and there was some weirdness going on there, and he started kind of talking about the situation at Lucasfilm, the change, and it wasn't really negative or derogatory, just here's the change in the attitude at Lucasfilm after Disney bought them. And then they politely reminded him of his NDA, which, again, having signed those ourselves and having signed one for comics, you're not allowed to disparage the Disney company in any way. And I think that they were like, shut up, this makes us look bad. But the truth is, Lucasfilm is not the same company now. And they're going to, to the point where they're going to try to, cut ties with a lot of these agreements. And who knows who else is coming, it's happening to. But Disney must pay. I'm sure
there's more.
Disney must pay. It's, but they're very good at finding legal loopholes.
They are, but they hate bad publicity.
Yep.
I mean, I don't blame them. They tried everything they could apparently on the back end. It didn't work, so they're coming out public, and they're right to do so because the one thing that Disney hates more than anything is this kind of stuff. And now, when they have money, they're quick to shut it down. Now they don't have money. I don't know how quick they're going to be to shut it down, but they don't like this. And anytime something happens and is out there in the press, suddenly you no longer hear of it again. All of a sudden. It was like suddenly the people that were upset or had rights to be upset disappear and are totally happy now. There's a reason for that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we'll pay you, but you shut up. That's what this whole thing is. Like, they only pay to shut people up. And for all this talk of Disney being one big happy family, look how they treated their employees.
Yeah, they treat their cast members the way they do, and those are their cast members.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of bright spots at Disney companies like Josh D'Amaro and stuff, but
Yeah, it's sad. Uncle Walt would not approve of this version of Disney. It's not Walt's company anymore. It hasn't been for a long time, but it's definitely in the last 5 to 10 years gotten worse.
Considerably worse, yes.
Considerably worse. So we're going to wrap it up.
Yep.
Okay, so please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Hopefully, Alan Dean Foster gets something out of Disney. Sounds like he really can use the money at this point.
And thoughts and prayers to him.
Thoughts and prayers.
Because he's not doing too good. So.
No. So we're going to wrap it up?
Yep.
Talk to you later.
Bye.